I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Hello, Foxly listeners. Welcome to the show today. Once again, I've said this in previous episodes. When you have an initial conversation that is so good, you don't even want to hit record. You know it's going to be an amazing episode. So you're going to want to grab your favorite drink and sit down for this one because my guest is spectacular. Stephanie, thank you for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I forgot we hadn't even hit record yet. I just am already in the zone and just there are no accidents. So I'm really grateful to be here today and to have a conversation.
So I, of course, have dived deep into your background and your story and all of that, and it's very interesting. But can you share it with our listeners of kind of what your path has been?
Absolutely. And I'll do it as succinctly as I can because I'm going to summarize 14 years of entrepreneurship. I actually started my first business at 22, and as lovely as that sounds, back in 2010, when I started my first business, the side hustle or entrepreneurship wasn't cool yet, right?
Right.
A lot of my friends thought I was crazy. I, at 22, only knew what I knew. I mean, I had been around small business owners and entrepreneurs from a young age and just felt this little tug on my heartstrings that I knew I wanted to own a business, but there was so much I didn't know. And so I share that context first because that first business that I built ended up being a full service marketing agency. We won a lot of awards. I don't take that lightly. It was, we had a lot of amazing success for our clients, helped clients in some of the toughest times of their businesses through COVID, expansion, and really, really pivoting and doing all the things, which is the ultimate measure of success. The awards, they sound really great, but I don't really care about those. It was more about the impact for the small businesses around the country and my team. I had a team of 8 all across the US too, and really getting to see them grow and thrive and learn and crush it for our clients was awesome.
Yeah.
But it always felt a little off to me. I would follow the nudges and I would be doubting, oh, is this really what I want to do? Because the background before that is I had worked for a marketing agency early on in my career while I was still living the side hustle life when it was before people knew it was that. But I actually didn't enjoy working at a marketing agency. I had 2 amazing mentors. They're still great friends today. They've taught me so much and helped me so much in my career, but I didn't like the environment or energy of the marketing agency and all the stress.
Right.
I burnt out. I was really just not well, not thriving, not loving it. And so I didn't really want to create a marketing agency. And then what do you know? 5 years
You do
later,
what you know.
yeah, you do what you know. And all these different opportunities were coming my way. And so I ended up finding myself with a full service marketing agency for small businesses. And it was incredible, but it wasn't in alignment for me. And there was always this voice in my inner knowing. I always point to the area right below your rib cage, which is your solar plexus. It's your life force. It's your intuition, your gut punch. If you know something's wrong and you're listening, you've probably felt a little ping there before, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And that always was feeling that way for me. but then I would get an amazing dream client, or we would get an award, or I would personally get an award. I'm like, something must be right here.
I have to be on the right path.
This
Yeah.
has to be the right path. And as it turns out, I'll fast forward through all the ups and downs. But what I really learned, my body started whispering to me until I didn't listen. I intuitively knew that I had adrenal issues and adrenal fatigue before I even knew what that meant, or any doctor ever diagnosed me. That was back in 2020 into 2021. And my solution was to launch 6 things for my personal businesses, to a new business, 2 new courses, 2 new websites, and a new, whole new branding, in addition to managing 36 clients across the country and my team.
It makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
As a fellow entrepreneur, I'm like, that tracks.
Yeah. And so since I didn't listen, then about 7 months later, my body forced me to listen. And it was a huge wake-up call. I'm left-handed, and I share that. And I'm sharing that at this part of my story because I didn't follow those nudges. And so then my body was like, okay, we got to really get her to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm left-handed, and I was working, no exaggeration, 16 to 18-hour days, sitting at my computer, not moving. Thank you, DoorDash and Instacart and all of the delivery services for keeping me fed during those times. But I was working so much that I actually injured my ulnar nerve, and it's your funny bone. So I had really bad, if you've ever hit your funny bone and you feel those pins and needles and the cramping, I had that nonstop for about 9 weeks and had to do physical therapy because I couldn't use my hand. I couldn't type for more than 20 minutes. I stopped working at my desk. I tried to work from the couch, saw if that would work a little bit better.
We always tried those little workarounds, right?
Any workaround we could to still work as much as I was working. But really, my body was saying, hey, what you're doing isn't working. We gotta make some changes.
Yeah.
And so that really allowed me, it was frustrating and very scary. I actually didn't know. I have a very good friend that was my PT at the time, and we did some pretty extensive work together to get my functionality back. But it took a while, and I really had to change my work style. And it was actually in that slowing down that I was really able to listen to my body and know that that wasn't the path for me. It wasn't the life I wanted for myself. I had built this whole life that was beautiful in so many ways, but wasn't what I wanted, and was actually making me really unwell in other areas of my life too. And so it was through all of that, and a really, really tough decision in 2022 to let that first business baby go, that I've been able to really come out of burnout and find bliss. And so through taking myself through that path, I'm really passionate about helping other entrepreneurs, maybe those that are living the side hustle or want to start a business, but do so from a really healthy, nervous system regulated, aligned, and intuitive place of how can we more trust ourselves so that we can live in better alignment. So that's a little bit about me.
And I love this because I think, we hear a lot about listening to our gut. But I think a lot of people equate that to when something feels icky, or when something feels wrong, or when somebody feels icky. And it's easy to just kind of go, the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't want to be in this conversation. I turn around and walk away. I'm one of those people at a party where I'm like, no, just leave. Right. But I find it's really easy to do that. I find where it's hard, and why your story was so intriguing to me is when it's hard is when you're in the good times and you have that intuition that you don't think that you should trust because you're successful. You're reaching the things that you're supposed to be reaching. You're hitting the success goals that you're supposed to be. Everybody's telling you, they wish they could be you, or you're so lucky, or all of that other stuff. There's almost this sense of guilt that and I always say you bestow guilt upon yourself, but we start bestowing this guilt that why am I not I shouldn't be? How greedy am I that I can't find the joy that somebody else would? So how can people sort of learn to listen to that in the good times as well?
You just said the magic word, and I don't know if you said it or not, but it's that should. right?
Right.
How many times do we feel like we should be doing something? Oh, I should be happy. You know, X, Y, and Z just happened. I should go to this event. It's something, it doesn't even necessarily have to be in your business. I think we so often know what feels right to us and we do something out of obligation. And that really, before I even talk about the business side of it, those are really where those little fractures and betrayals of our own trust and our own self start to happen. And then our body and our intuition quiets down a little bit and doesn't speak as strongly because we're not going to listen anyway, but it's always there. And I think that is the hardest part, because if you would have known me 2010, 2015, 2018, I lived the side hustle life for 9 years. So I started my business in 2010 and then went on my own and left the corporate job that I was in 2019. And we all know what happened in 2020. And that was actually like a really successful year for me. And so people were like, wow, you're so lucky. You're so successful. Like, it's so successful. I mean, it was a lot of hard work. Don't get me wrong. But if we stop shooting ourselves all the time, right? And saying, oh, I should want to do this, and just ask ourselves what we really want to do, we might be surprised by the answers. Because I know when I gave myself space and time to really slow down, and I mean, I wasn't happy about it. I went kicking and screaming. I was trying to figure out other ways to, you know, maybe if I prop my arm up at a certain angle, I can still type or use a few fingers without it cramping all the way. You know, or maybe I'll just learn to type only with my right hand. You know, I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
really
get
need the
super
left arm
proficient at
anyway.
it.
Yeah. And so I went kicking and screaming, but when I was able to do that, it really started to allow me to see how I was really pushing things forward and forcing it to happen. And we are very powerful as humans, as we have, you know, I believe a lot in energy, and I have a lot of science to back that up too, but it's like, we are very powerful as humans, and we can make things happen, especially as entrepreneurs. So many things that you can make happen in business, regardless of if it's your primary business, or if, you know, however your business structure is, like, we all can tap into that abundance. But how easy do we want to make it? Do you want to make it where it's in flow and in alignment, or do you want to go kicking and screaming all the time and make it really difficult for yourself? And so I don't know if I actually answered your question, but that's
No,
what came to
I
mind
think
when
you
you
did,
did.
because I think, you know, when you're in that, you know, struggle, and I think sometimes, you know, because we sort of are all in this culture of, you know, the hustle, the great hustle, and that, you know, it has to be hard and blood, sweat, and tears to get it, you know. And, you know, nobody can admit it. And I always picture like the one guy who climbed Mount Everest and went, like, what's the big deal? Right. But probably came down and went, yeah, that was really hard. You know, like, we've all had those moments in your life where you're like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm supposed to say it was like super hard, but like, it
Yeah.
really wasn't. Right. It's almost like we don't trust that, you know, if it's easy, it's still good. Right. Like
Oh
the too
yeah.
good to be true statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for you, like, when, you know, when you sort of came to this realization of like, of course you got the drastic, like, you're just not going to do this anymore. We're going to bash you over the head with this. What was it like? Because like you said, you sort of came out of it kicking and screaming. Was there a moment that you kind of went, that you had that realization that it's okay for me to let this go?
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. And so I can remember the moment so vividly, because I've worked with, and I'm sure so many of us have different mentors in our lives. And I think even, you know, sometimes that should can come up with what our mentors are telling us too, because that our mentor, you know, whoever it is, they're giving advice and guidance from their journey and how they experienced it. And that's a beautiful thing. We can learn so much and fast forward on that timeline. I mean, I had two very significant mentors in my life at the time, and I was trying all the things. You know, I had been hiring more team and doing all these things, and it still just kept on feeling so heavy. And just, I was like, I'm done. I'm not, this is not happy. I remember though, the pivotal moment. Um, so two things. I had to first give myself permission, which sounds so easy and so silly. But I remember my one, and the reason I'm talking about mentors is I remember this mentoring session. We were on Zoom and my mentor and I was like just telling her what, you know, how I was feeling. And I was like, I just don't, like, I don't know anymore. You know, I used to be
Mhm.
so clear and it just seems like I'm missing something. And we had been having some ongoing conversations. I mean, things were going well in the business, but I just wasn't happy with it. I wasn't
Mhm.
fulfilled. It didn't feel good. And I was physically dealing with a lot of health challenges. And I was like, something's got to give here. And I remember she said to me, she said, it's probably going to piss you off. But she had a mentor tell her once, like, you know, I wave a magic wand and I give you permission. Like, what do you choose? And it was that perspective shift, even though it did frustrate me in the moment of like, see, having it just stated that simply, my ego got a little triggered. Um, but we do get to choose.
Yeah.
And when I gave myself permission to choose a different path and I didn't have to stay in the struggle and the survival mode that I had built so much comfort in, you know, and just all the other layers of that come into a big decision like that. When I finally knew that I got to choose and I had permission to change my mind, everything really opened up from there.
Yeah.
Because I realized that I was really in the driver's seat. I didn't have to continue living my life that way.
Yeah. And I remember like even for myself, like when I decided to close one of my retail stores, it's just because I wanted to. Like, and I remember going, I just want to. Like, but and everybody wanted like this deep philosophical decision. I was like,
Yeah.
and I remember the freedom of allowing myself, and I think that I mean came with age and experience of just going, I just don't like people anymore. Like people being like shocked and
Yeah.
me like kind of really liking that shock factor, to be honest with you. I'm
Yeah.
going, this is kind of fun because I realized that although everybody wanted an explanation, they wanted, you know, they wanted something deep. The truth was, it really was that simple of a decision. I just kind of woke up one day and went, I don't really want to do this anymore. And I thought, why do as an entrepreneur, why am I choosing this difficulty when hundreds and thousands of people every day go, I don't want to have this job anymore, and they switch and they go get another job. Like that's
Yeah.
really all I'm doing, but why am I putting such harshness
Yeah.
on, you know, on myself when it
Yeah.
really just can be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, that is so freeing. And I
Yeah.
think so often, you know, and I think that should sometimes comes in because of other people's perspective on a matter or what they might think. And it is so freeing just to
Yeah.
know that it's the right decision for you and to let it go if you want to let it go. I mean, why it's your business. Why continue to be in a business that you're just not, it's not in alignment anymore. I always tell, because I've done, I mean, hundreds of campaigns. I've launched and relaunched hundreds of brands over my career, and I still do some branding work with really aligned clients. But one of the things I always remind my entrepreneurs when we're talking about a brand or a rebrand, humans, like, we're supposed to change. We're allowed to change. You're allowed to change your mind, like, regardless of what you've gone through in your life situation. I know you mentioned you have children, like, that's a huge change and transformation. Your perspective shifts there. You want different
Yeah.
things. I don't know that from personal experience, but I have a lot of friends that have kids. You know, you go into a different season of your life, you're interested in different things. You we change. Our
Mhm.
businesses get to change too. Like, it's okay. You don't have to just sign up and do one thing the rest of your life
Yeah.
and just, you know, be so rigid in it. We're supposed to be like transformational beings and able to change our mind and pursue different things that light us up. Truly, that's the only way that we evolve and survive and thrive.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the more people talk about it and the more people put that permission out in the world, like I remember numerous times with my son of like him coming back from school and going, they say that I'm supposed to know what I want to be when I grow up. Like what? And me going, I don't know what I want to be.
Yeah,
So
that's so
just
unfair that
like,
we tell our kids that. I
I'm like,
know.
just pick whatever you want. And then if you don't like it, change it and then be something else. Like you don't have to pick one thing and be it forever. And I don't care. Like I said to him, I don't care what you want to be like, but that was something that was like bestowed. And I always remember being young and saying, you know, I had very polar opposite parents. So I got very different messages. And my dad was like, no, you have to find a good job. You know, he was a military guy. So he was like, get into the government, get a steady job, do it for 4 years. You're never going to like your job. Then you retire and you can have a life. And then my mom was like, you know, I was like, I want to be a cashier because like I really like pushing the buttons. And she's like, then you'd be the best cashier ever. You'll be like the head cashier. You'll be like
I
teaching
love it.
cashiers all around the world. Like she was like, oh my God, you would be so good at it and you love it and think how happy you would be. And like it was just like, and then if I changed my mind and I wanted to be something else, like when I was like, okay, I think I want to go into accounting when I became an adult, she was like, you're still pushing buttons. That totally makes sense. Like it was
I love
just,
it.
you know, and then
Oh,
you know, my parents had ended up splitting up, and I remember saying to my dad, like, I kind of want to start this other business. I don't know what to do. And he goes, do you remember when you were young and you wanted to be a cashier? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay, so worst case scenario, if you lose your job, maybe you have to go like get a job as a cashier at
yeah,
Walmart. And I'm not knocking anybody who's a cashier at Walmart, but he was like, worst case scenario, let's say you had to
totally.
go and do that.
Yeah.
You're still living a dream. And
Oh
I
my
was
gosh, I
like,
love that.
that's you are 100% right. And he goes, and would you not have fun if all of a sudden somebody said to you, go and work at like a grocery store or something like that and just be a cashier? Would you do it? And I was like, I'm one of those weird people who really like self checkout because I get to live my cashier dream. Like, I'm like,
I love it.
I know the code for tomatoes. Like
Oh
I
my
can
God.
just
Let me just
I
know
put
this
more.
code
Like
right
I'm
now.
just gonna put it in, right? Like so, but it's to me that was like when I look back on that, I go, what an interesting perspective of going, I can change the whole
Mhm.
dynamic of my life by just looking at something different.
Oh, that's so
Same
powerful.
exact thing, same situation, nothing else changes, but just changing my perception of how I'm viewing it, right? But we don't allow that because everybody else says this is the way you're supposed to look at it.
Oh yeah. Or we're afraid of the judgment of how will it look, right? I built a brand for over a decade online wearing a hot pink blazer, and I like the color hot pink, don't get me wrong. And it worked from a branding perspective of the messaging I wanted to give with the intention behind the color psychology. Like that was all very strategic. Even I was at an event like a month ago, and somebody mentioned that they remembered me in the hot pink blazer. And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, I don't force myself to wear hot pink anymore because
Yeah.
I built the box. I was setting it. And as a branding expert, oh, I had all the brand photo
Yeah.
shoots set up, all the guidance. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that rigid. What if we just look at it from a different perspective? Because we're all just human and we all have a lot of different interests. Whether you love and like are obsessed and eat and breathe and sleep your business, or you have other hobbies or interests or things that you do for play and fun or family obligations. Like we are multifaceted beings. And so we get to embrace that in our lives and in our businesses too. We don't have to just be one thing.
Hmm. So if someone is sitting there right now and listening and going, you know, I'm sort of in that phase where like I'm doing good. I'm doing okay on paper, but emotionally I'm not. What are some steps they can take to figure out, am I in the wrong spot or is this just something else that's going on? Because I think that decision is like hard, right? Like how do I know this is intuition knocking or
Yeah.
just me, my
Yeah.
brain trying to tell me something?
I have a couple of thoughts that are coming in to say about that. So I think first, how we decipher between intuition and anxiety. Intuition is always really clear and calm. It doesn't have an emotion to it. It's just a knowing and understanding. Anxiety often has an emotion. Well, what if you do that? Blah, 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 blah. Or what if this? That's where your monkey mind, your brain, your mind is really getting activated and thinking about all those scenarios. So intuition is just, it is calm. It's usually there's no feeling to it or no emotion to it at all. It's just a statement that you can feel. And I like to make that clarification first, because I know when I was really in my nervous system dysregulation era, I was feeling very anxious oftentimes and was having a hard time discerning between the two, and taking all the signs of, oh, we just got this dream client, as a sign to keep on going on the path, even though it felt really wrong to me in my body.
Right.
So now the second part of that is, how do you feel into your body? And I think, because that's the other part of it, is to be able to listen to our bodies, we have to start to develop relationship and connection. And it's not like you're gonna go from go, that hustle mentality and chasing all those external achievements or the check marks. I mean, I'm saying this from a place of so much love, because that was my life, right? I lived for, oh yeah, did that, accomplished that goal. I achieved every business goal I had for the business, grew the business and then some. But it always felt really empty, like something was missing. Something didn't feel like it was at my own expense. And I've done a lot of work processing it from there, that I can say it that clearly now. But I think if you're in that spot and you're like, well, how do I know? It's carving out some time for yourself. And now I know as entrepreneurs, that's the last thing you want to hear, but I'm talking, we can start with 2 minutes, and everybody can take 2 minutes just to even take a deep breath and just be present with it. Start to feel it through your nose, coming into the back of your throat, maybe feeling the rise and fall of your chest as you're taking that deep breath. And just starting to come back into yourself, not worrying about the outside world for a second. And I mean, there's layers upon layers of things from a holistic standpoint, because now I'm a sound healer and a holistic somatic coach, for entrepreneurs or people just that are going through stressful things in their lives. But there's a lot of different things that I teach clients now in our one-on-one work, of really simple practices that take, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. Of course, we want to work up from there, but we start really small, because if you're used to achieving every goal, hitting every deadline, and sitting in meetings and making all the things happen in your business, we want to start small so that you can start just flexing the muscle a little bit, because it really is like you're in a workout, or taking a walk. You got to use the muscles so that you can start to strengthen them. And so that's a really simple way to do that. Meditation is another thing that I love, but I feel like a lot of people know what meditation is now, but some people are still really resistant. I used to say I couldn't meditate, and words are truly spells. So what we say, it shapes a lot of our beliefs. But even starting small with meditation, even a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and there's a lot of different apps and tools out there that can help guide you through those different products. I have some free resources too, but those are all ways to start that relationship within, and then you can feel into your body and get to a point where you can ask yourself a question. Oh, I'm thinking of doing this, and then see how it feels in your body. And then you already know the answer, because that's the beautiful thing about intuition. We have all been gifted this beautiful, amazing, intelligent system in our bodies. It's there's a layer of science behind it as well, but even just on an energetic level, like of how something feels for us. Like, we've all been in a situation where we knew we should have taken, let's even say you're in the car, you went left instead of right, and oh, there's a traffic jam. Now you're going to be late for your destination. You probably were like, oh, I thought about going right, but I second guessed it.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to practice that you get out of that habit of second guessing and create a new habit of just trusting whatever's coming up for you in the moment.
Well, and I think that's, it's such a freeing thing when you can get to that point, but I think it's also such a scary thing when you're doing it, because it almost like it becomes second nature for that second guess, right? Like, this is what I want to do. Oh, but but should I? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and I know for me, when I, kind of started the journey of intuition, I was such like a meal planner, right? Like everything had to be on a plan because it was like so structured. And then I was challenged, my coach at my intuition coach had challenged me. She's like, I just want you to like ask yourself, like, what do we want to eat? Like, and I was
Mhm.
like the family? She's like, no, just like
Yeah,
you,
just you.
but just
Yeah,
say, what do we like? Pretend like there's somebody else inside of you. And you're just like,
yeah,
what do we feel like eating today? And I was like, this is like, I remember the first time doing it going, this is so dumb, as I'm standing in front of my fridge going, well, what do we want to eat,
yeah.
everybody? Like, and I'm in the house completely by myself.
I love it.
But I think like if for me it was, and I remember going, I feel really stupid, and was like, just push past this. And then I realized that it was more about freeing myself from the constructs of being busy all the time. Because if I was
Yes.
at work, I was thinking at work. If I was at home, I was thinking about home. There was always something else that had my attention.
Yeah.
And so learning to sort of quiet myself, because I remember doing like meditation when I first started, I was like, you want me to stop thinking? That's what? Like,
Yeah.
even if I'm not thinking, there's a tune playing in my head. Like there's a musical
Yeah.
going on in here.
I
Like,
love it.
right. But it was, I remember sitting there and somebody going, no, you don't have to shut everything off.
Yeah.
You just have to go, not right now. Like, so
Yeah.
it was like also learning that meditation doesn't mean that your mind is blank.
Yeah. I
Right?
think
And
that's
I
a
think a
really
lot of
common
people think that.
misconception.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you have to
Yeah.
like think no thoughts can be in your head. That
Yeah.
was like, it just has to be like you're just standing in a black room, right? People are
Yeah.
like,
Well,
that's
and our
impossible.
brains just aren't wired to do that. I mean, yeah, I've been studying a lot about evolution and our ancestors and really like the epigenetics is the larger term for it, but really understanding like how we came to be as humans. And our brains are always scanning our environment, even sitting wherever you're sitting, listening to this podcast right now. Me, I'm sitting in my office as we're having this conversation. My brain is always scanning for, that's how our brain is structured. Am I safe? Is there a threat nearby? Now, our ancestors were worried about bears. Yeah, we don't, maybe where you live or if you're camping, you might encounter a bear. It's a wild animal of some sort. But the biggest bear in our day to day, I feel really confidently in saying for most of us, is our cell phone because we're
Mm.
constantly receiving stressors. This notification, somebody needs this, somebody needs this. I had a coach at one point tell me that email was somebody else's priorities. And I see my whole phone as being somebody else's priorities now. And I would never even, until a year and a half ago, I had never taken a vacation without bringing my laptop and working
Yeah.
the whole time. So it's been an evolution and a journey, but I think it's beautiful what you shared about your intuition coach and saying, what do we want to eat today? And how many times are we actually having some mindfulness or asking yourself what you want to eat and thinking about it instead of just grabbing whatever is most convenient and scarfing it down in 2 seconds, and not even taking a breath before you eat your food, and just finding little ways to add some mindfulness in, because what you're doing in that moment, so often when I first start working with clients, they're like, well, you're the intuitive one. You tell me what to do. And I'm like, well, you're intuitive too. We'll get there. But it's because we're taught in a society to put so much of our emphasis on external, whether it's achievements or somebody else's recommendations, um, those authority figures and what they're saying to do and following that, and not feeling into how it feels for us, whether it's, what you're going to do for your career path. There's a lot of other kids who had parents similar to the story that you were sharing and would have went right into whatever career field the parent said to go into, right? Instead of really knowing what they wanted to do. And
Which I did.
well, and it happens, right?
And that was
That's
horrible, but at least I listened and
right.
went, I can't do this for 40 years.
Exactly. But so many of us, right? And I
Yeah.
did the same thing. I very much did the same thing. That's how I can recognize it so easily. And it's just, we have a society where there's a lot of that pressure. And I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit more pressure as women, a lot of times because especially with family and home life, a lot of that responsibility falls on women. And then what we do is we don't take care of ourselves. I am a woman and I know what that's like. We don't take care of ourselves. We take care of everybody else first, whether it's in your business, your employees, your team, your home life, a partner, a spouse, your kids, your pets, a plant. I mean, whatever it might be. So often we prioritize things outside of ourselves. And so if we went right to, oh, I'm just going to immediately trust my intuition, everything it says, and follow everything that I say, it would be a shock to our systems. We wouldn't be able to do it. So we have to be able to start small and show ourselves that we can do it too, and build that self-trust. And so it is in the little moments, like asking ourselves what we want to eat or what we want to drink, or, oh, what do I want to do to exercise today? Do I want to take a walk or do I want to do something else? And it's just allowing ourselves that little experience to start that dialogue with our body, because then it gets louder over time. And that's how we really build intuition.
Well, I love this because I think so often, we keep ourselves so busy that we don't have those moments to just sit, because it feels, we should be doing something. We should be doing, multitasking or being more productive. And I remember meeting this lady. She was 83, I think, at the time. And every day at lunch, she lives in Europe, and every day at lunch she would go out and she would light candles and she would have a glass of wine and she would cook her supper, and like, it was a 2-hour affair for her. And I remember saying, like, you do this, you do this every night. Like, it was so, and she says, it's funny how this seems so obscure to you. She would laugh at me. And I thought, like, why? Like, this is so much time, is all, like, all I kept thinking was how much stuff I could accomplish in that amount of time. And then she says, I want you to just, like, sit. I was like across from her. She's like, sit and watch me, because she goes, I'll pay no attention to you. And there was so much joy in her that it made me take that moment to stop and go, but she loves this. Like, she lives for this moment. And she was like that 3-year-old that was like eating like a fresh mango or something for the first time. Like, she was savoring everything. And I just remember looking at her going, oh my God, I'm doing life so wrong. Like, that I am not sitting there like almost having an orgasmic experience over this freaking fruit. Like, man, can it be that easy, right?
I can picture that. And I mean, obviously I wasn't there for that, but like, I can picture that moment and just the presence that has. And if we're in it and we're, running our business and taking care of home life and all of those different pieces, that might sound really scary to think about taking a moment or asking yourself even what you want. Like, oh my gosh, like
I don't have
when you're
time for
overwhelmed,
this.
you're like, no more time. I don't have time for this. That used to be my go-to response for everything. I don't have time for this. But I think when we can just try it, even if it's, try this on for size. Take a deep breath before you take a bite of your food. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Next time you sit down for a meal, you're breathing anyway. You're just doing it unconsciously. Thankfully, our bodies breathe for us, so we don't have to think about doing that too. But just take a breath, because those little moments, those micro moments of presence, can really help to bring you back into the present moment. Not to be thinking about your to-do list for later, not to be thinking about something that happened in the past, but really just truly being in the present moment. And that is really where we can connect in the best. And it really doesn't have to be a 2-hour experience.
Right.
If it could be, beautiful. To think about the joy you could have just from the present moment of eating a mango and experiencing it like you've never had one before and it was the first time. What would that be different? I'm just thinking about it. Like, you'd probably taste different flavors in the mango. Maybe the texture would be different. Maybe you could appreciate the color more, the feel of it, and just so many things that I think we don't do because of the time, but we miss out on an opportunity to really appreciate it. Like, I I stand in the grass. I do a form of grounding every day. I either stand in the grass barefoot, I stand in dirt, I live in the desert, so I stand on rocks sometimes. And it's just in those moments, like even this morning, it's a little bit breezy today. So I got to feel the breeze. And I'm talking, I was out there for 2 minutes. I got to feel the breeze. I was out there for the sunrise. So I got to see those beautiful colors, feel the cold grass on my feet. And I can think about all of the sensations that I felt this morning in those 2 minutes, because it's not like I didn't have my phone with me. I got to see an amazing sunrise that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. And I start my day that way every day, but I still specifically remember that sunrise this morning because I just took 2 minutes and took some breaths and was present in the moment and wasn't thinking about all I had to do today or this conversation or the other meetings I had before. I just was letting those 2 moments be those 2 moments for me. And I think, regardless of how quote unquote busy we are or how active our days are, we all can take an experience we do every day anyway, even if it's just brushing your teeth, and just be present in it. Feel what the bristles feel like when they're touching your teeth and your gums, how cold the water is, what the toothpaste feels like when it's in your mouth and on your teeth. You can do the same thing in the shower, washing your hair, feeling the water over you, washing your face, something you do every day. You can just bring some more presence into it. And that's a beautiful way to start to build that relationship too.
I love that because it's something like you said, you're not adding, it's not like, okay, here's something else that I'm adding to the list. These are all things that you're doing already. But I think, bringing that awareness to being intentional with what it is that you're doing helps you in every other, aspect of your life, including into your business, because you can translate it over into that of going, okay, I'm going to be present to do this right now. And that I always say, like, I'm going to shut off my phone. When I discovered that I can put my phone in airplane mode, but I can have only like two people, my husband and my son, that could reach me if they
Yeah.
need to. And then it took me a while. It took me a year and a half of finally saying to them, can I just shut it off? Because I started to realize that instinctively, I could, even if I put it upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
I could hear the buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I was like, that is an insane connection I don't want to have.
Oh yeah.
Like, it would buzz like 2 floors up, and I would be like, it's calling to me. And I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of other people listening right now that are like, oh, I feel it.
Oh yeah. When I'm mostly on do not disturb mode, but I've trained myself. If I check in the day, I see, I'll click in and see what notifications, even if I don't see the messages because I don't have those come up, but I'll check in. But yeah, these devices, and I think that's on from a neuroscience perspective, we're becoming more and more addicted to technology because of the pleasure centers in our brain that get activated when we have a notification. It could be a like on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, or it could be a message or notification. We feel that dopamine spike. And that's why we're getting so addicted. That's why you can feel that connection, even if it's in another
Yeah.
room. But I think that intentionality,
Yeah.
what could our businesses, because I built a business without intention and without being aligned with what I really wanted for my life to begin with. I don't choose to do that anymore. So even if we have those moments or we have those habits that we want to shift, it's not like you're going to flip a switch and it's going to change overnight. That's just not how it
Mhm.
works. Um,
But I think, like you said, making those little like micro
yes,
changes, like even if you're sitting in a restaurant and you're sitting with someone, now when somebody gets up to go to the washroom, I don't grab my phone anymore. I sit
me
there and
either.
I look around
Yeah.
the restaurant.
Yeah.
I eavesdrop on conversations
That's
of
so
what
much
other,
fun.
because there's a lot of tea that gets spilt at
Oh
restaurants.
yeah.
But I find that is so, one, it's so much more calming for me, because I'm not diving into, a different world. But
Yeah.
I find that I start to see things a lot quicker in
Yeah.
other areas of my life. Like I'll pick up things a lot faster if someone's feeling off or whatever. I see it where I was getting sucked into a screen world and my observation was getting off.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so powerful. And I think that that's so true about presence and intention. And when we can bring it into those little moments, you just like at a restaurant, the people that are there, maybe they're there celebrating a birthday, a big birthday for a family member. Like you get to have a glimpse of that and feel that joy and that love. And yes, I know there's a lot of things that we can feel from our phones too, but those human to human connections, we just don't get those back. We don't get that time back. I'm sure as a mom, you understand that more than most. But I think, even just in my life, I think about so many times that I wasn't present and I wasn't connected. I was worried about work or I was worried about something else, and I missed out on probably a really great opportunity to bond. And the present moment is such a gift. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but it truly is. And just those little habits or little choices, trying it. You might try it on for size and it might not be for you now, and that's okay too. But you won't know unless you try. Maybe I love that dinner example, because you'll get to see the artwork around the restaurant, smell the cuisine, and feel the energy and the buzz of people that are there, and really just be present with what's happening there with the humans around you. And that's really cool. And it does benefit your business. How many times have you taken a vacation and actually taken a break and you come back more refreshed and recharged?
Yeah.
If you're constantly plugged in and connected, you're not feeling recharged. I know that without a doubt. Because you're never really turning it off. And we're not meant to be connected all the time. I think that's the one thing that I really struggle with technology. Is it's a beautiful gift to be able to be plugged in from anywhere with Wi-Fi and work and be able to connect and make an impact and add value. But we're not meant to be plugged in and have access to all the information of everything that's going in and on in the world at all times. It's very overwhelming for our nervous systems. And those bears that I was talking about before, where our brains are constantly like, oh, we're not safe. We get all those, I'm not safe, or I'm not enough, or any other trigger. We get all of those messages from our phone. And it really is hard to come into your authenticity and be in alignment and be present if you constantly feel like you're navigating emotional stress. And so those little moments of presence, whether it's trying it at dinner tonight, where you just don't have your cell phone at the table and you're just having a present conversation or enjoying the food or the aromas or the sounds that you hear, it really can help us break that addiction a little bit and give us more bliss.
Yeah. Well, and I think I remember somebody saying to me once, like, and I mean, this is like a famous saying or whatever, but you'll stop worrying about what other people think of you when you realize how little they do. And I took that one really to heart when I was like, no, like I need to be on social media. I need to be consistent. I was like, nobody gives a shit. Because I tried it once. I disappeared for 2 weeks. Nobody cared. Like my friends texted me and were like, you okay? Like, haven't seen you in a while or whatever. But it was like I wasn't flooded with people being like, what's happening? What's going on? And I was like, so now I'm like the person of like, nobody cares. Like whenever any of my girlfriends are like, I need to let people, I'm like, they don't care. They'll care when you come back on, but you can go for a week. And then when you come back, they'll be like, oh, hi, how's it going? Right? Like I said, I always think of everybody on social media like golden retrievers. Like when you're not there, they're like, whatever. And then as soon as you come in, they're like, hey.
Oh my gosh, we missed you. Where have you been? Have you seen any other dogs? Where's my toys? Where are my treats? Yeah. It's very much golden retriever energy. I like that.
Right?
I have a friend and fellow entrepreneur. She was really going through a tougher season in her business, and she was shaming herself a lot about not wanting to show up on social media and the pressure there. And she took a month off, and I was so actually really proud of her for doing that, because she just needed a break. And her business, it wasn't making an impact for the lights staying on for her to show up on social media every day. If it's coming from a place of force, your audience is going to feel that anyway, and it's not going to be really authentic, and it's just going to drain you more. So I think that that's a perfectly amazing example of doing what's right for you. And like, if it feels like, oh, I really don't want to post, or I don't even want to go on there, that's okay. I think that's another case of the shoulds and feeling like we should be there or we need to be there. And I know a lot of really successful business owners that don't even like have an Instagram for their business,
Yeah.
right? Versus I have a lot of people that, you know, or know of influencers that look like they're doing really great on social media, but that's not converting into sales.
Yeah.
And so I think we often misquantify. I'm going back to my marketing agency days where I would preach this to my clients of, you know, I don't necessarily, I've never cared about the number of followers you have because that doesn't equate to how many customers you have.
Yeah.
Nor does really the engagement. It's cultivating and creating enough value that people want to come off of social media and come into your world, whether that's your text community, your email list, your blog, your website, your product or service page, whatever that might be. And I think we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves when it comes to social media of just showing up. I know I do too. It's something that I actively work on and play with. But the algorithms really are created to give us that dopamine hit too. So the more that we're on there, we get rewarded. They show our content to more people because they want your time on site to be there because that's going to make them more money, right? For us to be on there more. So it's a very natural thing. But once you realize that you're getting dopamine from that, you can start to swap those dopamine receptors out for healthier options. Maybe it's seeing a sunrise or a sunset or taking a walk or hugging a loved one.
Yeah, I always go to the airport whenever I'm like really, really down. I go to Arrivals at the airport and I just sit there and I watch because like I've never seen anybody upset. Like maybe once.
I always think of that scene in the movie Love Actually where they go to the airport and
that's what started me to do it.
It makes me cry. But I did a drop off at the airport the other day and I was for a friend and I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, the love that you get to see when you're here. Yeah. And like, just, you know, whether it's a hello or a goodbye, that's a moment. And if you're on your phone the whole time or not present in the moment, you're going to miss an opportunity to love on that loved one or to welcome them and greet them. I think that that's a beautiful analogy for business too, of like, we get to take those breaks and those business breaks. Your business isn't going to make it or break it over you giving a loved one a hug or calling a friend and catching up or having a dinner and just not having your phone around. You know, I know that there are some careers and professions that it is life or death and it is an emergency situation. I've never experienced that in my line of work. But I definitely have experienced people who really thought that their business concerns for their marketing campaign were a life or death situation and the pressure that it put on me and team and in a variety of different aspects. And it's like, you know, I think back to some of those moments of things that I prioritized over family and like a loved one that passed and we don't get any more time then. And so if we can really practice presence, we can make the most of every moment.
Well, and I think I remember having a conversation with an actual brain surgeon and saying to him like you are necessary because he was in trauma. And so I'm like, these are like I mean, you need to be there because these accidents happen and you're a moment's notice. And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, it must be hard for you because you never get to shut off. And he's like, what are you talking about? I do all the time. And he goes, do you think I'm the only doctor at the hospital?
Wow.
I'm not the only one who does this job. And it made me take a step back and go, you know what? Wow. And he goes, like, how egotistical would I need to be to think that I have to be on all the time? He goes, first of all, I can't because what I do is very intricate work. So I need sleep. I need to eat properly. Like I serve my patients the best when I take time off. And he goes, and there are moments where I have to be on call. And I might get a call at 3 a.m. and I have to go in. There are those times. And he goes, but let me tell you, the one thing I've learned is that when I can take those moments where I'm not going to be needed because somebody else is covering me, then I shut off because I need to. And I thought, you know, that whole thing, like, doesn't take a rocket science. I'm like, doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize you need to shut off and that the world isn't going to fall apart because there is other people. Like,
Yeah.
we all want to think that, of course, and I got this when I was closing the store. People be like, what are you going to do? Like, everybody's going to be so upset. And I'm thinking, somebody else will close and people will
Yeah,
forget. Like,
exactly.
and those that don't, I mean, I just had it the other day. A lady stopped me in the store and she was like, I miss your store so much. Like, I miss seeing you. And it was great and it was wonderful. But again, I had that little intuitive feeling because my husband looked at me and goes, do you ever miss it? And I was like, nope.
No.
Because it was
Well, yeah.
sweet. I got that, like you said, I got
Yeah.
that dopamine hit. I got
Yeah.
that, like, oh, that's really sweet. La 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 la. But when I like the thought of going back to that, I was like, nope.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I love it. Even the brain surgeon takes a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
We all are worthy of taking a break.
Because he's like, there's somebody else there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the end all. I'm not the only one in the world.
And I
And
just
that's the
love
one that
that
made me
you, yeah.
go,
Yeah.
yeah, no matter what job you're in, you're
Yeah.
not the only one in the world. So it's
Right.
okay.
And it's okay to take a break. You're going to show up better in your business. This is the one thing that I've learned for sure in 14 years and working myself really, really aggressive hours and not having much of a life outside of my business for a long time. And it's like, um, we get to take a break and we're better at our business when we take a break. And even with you and your store, you can have so much appreciation
Mhm.
for that, but also know that you're doing what's right for you.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, regardless if you're talking about business or life or any experience, we're all just here making choices, deciding what's right for us. And when you know that you're in alignment and you're doing what's right for you and you're being intentional about it and it feels good to you, it feels like a yes, you don't have to worry about the shoulds or what anybody else thinks because you're honoring what's right for you. And so,
Mhm.
yes, what a beautiful thing. Like even that awe of just having that acknowledgement of, oh, I really miss your store. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
To me, I
you can be
took it
so
as a
grateful.
compliment. I'm like, I did something
Yeah,
right. Somebody liked me.
absolutely.
Perfect.
But then it's also like, I don't need that anymore. I'm good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is true honoring exactly what you need, which is beautiful.
Yeah. So I know there's going to be people who are listening because I know that this is, people, I really feel that there is this huge shift that is, it's starting to happen where people are going, I want to learn more about this. I want
Yeah.
to be able to dive into intuition and combine it together, not only with my personal life, but especially with my business, because
Yeah.
I don't want it to be all about the hustle. So shameless plug time. How do they get a hold of you? How do they follow you? What kind of things are you offering? Who are you looking for? Because if somebody is listening, tell us who your idea. I want them to be like, "Oh my God, that's me. She wants to work with me."
Absolutely. I love working with and helping the person I was before. So maybe you are a high achieving entrepreneur, but something is feeling off. A lot of the physical symptoms in the body, a lot of times you're not sleeping well, you're navigating a lot of stress, you're living a life of achievement and checking all the boxes, but something feels just a little off. Maybe you're unfocused, not really living your ideal life, or you haven't even mapped out what your ideal life is. I'd love to talk to you. I also talk to people that are just going through transitions in life. You don't necessarily need to own a business to be on this journey, because I think where I've come to now in my journey is our businesses and our lives mirror each other a lot. And so if this is more of a life side of things for you, I do that too. I do one-on-one work. I have a holistic mentorship program where we work on building intuition, helping address and understand where you're at from a nervous system perspective, and giving you tips and tools and strategies to help you come out of fight or flight and come back into a more aligned and centered place where stress isn't overwhelming your lives. So you can make clearer decisions in your life and in your business. And I have events, I do retreats. I go in for corporate wellness for companies all over the country. And I'm actually getting ready to host a retreat in Costa Rica in
Oh,
September
fun.
2024. So, and that'll be for female entrepreneurs. And we're doing business strategy and nervous system regulation and somatic work, which will be amazing. So there's a lot of different ways, I guess, for me to partner, depending on what's needed. But you can find everything at stephanieriel.com, or on Instagram is where I'm most active. I am Stephanie Riel, and that's Riel. But you can find everything about me. I post about all my offers and ways to work together, whether it's coaching or one-off events or retreat experiences. I would love to connect and help bring us all from out of stress and into bliss.
I love that. Well, we'll make sure we have all of the links to where everybody can find you and connect with you super easy on this episode. Stephanie, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you. And thank you so much, because I think that this is a topic that I want to open up to people. I talk a lot to people about collaboration. And let me tell you, the biggest thing you can ever do for getting the best collaborations is listening to your intuition. So I love all of this. It was just so beneficial. I think whether you have a business or whether you're, just starting in it 100 years, or whether you don't and you're just using it for personal life, it's so beneficial. So thank you so much for not only sharing your story, but some tips that people can use too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you try any of the tips, or I have some free resources on my YouTube. I have a meditation on my website that you can access. And if you try anything, I'd love to hear how you're feeling. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know.
I loved having Stephanie on the show. You know, I know a lot of people, think of like the woo-woo stuff and crystals and all of that other thing when talking about intuition. But one of the things that I have learned being in business as long as I have is trusting that, whether you want to call it intuition, gut feeling, or whatever, but it was learning to take a step back in what I was doing, take that moment to take, like Stephanie had said, take that deep breath and really be present, allowed me to start to come up with the answers a lot easier. And the more I sort of built that muscle for myself in business, I realized that understanding what directions I needed to go with my business, what collaborations were going to work for me, what partnerships were going to work for me, started to come a lot easier. And I wasn't second guessing myself as much, because I was learning to trust what part of it was anxiety, like Stephanie had said, and what part was the intuition. So I'm going to make sure that I link to that part when she talks about what the difference is, because I thought that was such a key part to this. But I would also love to know, what part of this episode made you kind of take a moment to step back and go, ah, I got to start trying that, or make you go, I forgot that I was actually doing that or practicing that. I want to know what those are. I love to get different perspectives on it. So please comment on the bottom of the post, or of the podcast episode. Send me an email, send up smoke signals, get the message to me however you want. I'm always interested to hear what your takeaways are. I am always the one who answers all of my messages, because I think it's important that you know who you're talking to. And as always, if there's a topic that you really want to learn about, or you want to learn more about, that you want us to dive into, I encourage you to reach out as well and let us know, because we do read them all. Every single message gets sent to me. I read it and I really take it to heart, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you all of the tools that you can to not only lead a better life in business, but a better life just all around in general, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's inside or outside. It is all about everything, all encompassing. So no matter what it is that you're doing today, I want you to do two things. The first and most important thing is, I want you to pick a new thing that you're going to start doing. If that's like Stephanie said, where you take that moment to take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, just before you eat, to sort of give you that resting and relaxing. If it's taking an extra moment to shut your phone off and actually put it away, shut it off all the way. I promise you, every single phone has a complete shutdown feature. Shut that down and put it aside, and just enjoy a moment, a dinner, a lunch, a meeting, completely undistracted. I want you to try that new technique. Tell me which technique you try. Tell me how it worked for you, how long you tried it. I want to hear all about it. And the second thing is what I always say, make sure that no matter what it is that you're doing or letting go of, that you make sure that you take time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?